living a life of righteousness, holy righteousness.
During those first several years, met people, told them our story, shared with them our vision for starting a new church. And in a city like Cincinnati, anything new is seen with suspicion. It takes years to get established so that you're actually trustworthy in the eyes of the community. Actually, after about 2 years, launched into a Sunday morning meeting where we could invite people to something. That ended up drawing a grand total of about 30 people, which was very discouraging to me because I'd talked to, as I calculated, at about 1,200 people altogether. Began to really rethink the whole idea of why am I here? Am I doing the right thing in life? Should I be teaching elementary school? Should I be driving a school bus? You know, this is just not something I'm cut out to do, is to bide my time with a handful of people. And about that time, out of my frustration, I suspect, and partly out of seeing the movie that won several Academy Awards in the early 80s called Network. It was about a news crew, but in particular a newscaster named Howard Beale that lost his mind on the air and began to rant live and began to go around the studio wearing his rain-soaked pajamas.
I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, "I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!"
So if you relate to this, open your window wherever you are in America, yell out the window as loud as you can. I'm mad as hell, I'm not going to take it any longer. And to my surprise, realized that I was a lot like Howard Beale. And perhaps that's the way humans change in the end anyways. We don't change it with ease. We don't change gradually and kind of skip our way down the primrose lane, and change is a joyful thing to embrace, but it's very painful, it's very difficult. And especially when it comes to changing our paradigms about how things work in life.
So my wife and I came in kind of as church burnouts and just soaked in the worship. I was in a Christian music ministry and came off the road in 1986, and at that time began to lead worship here at the Vineyard Christian Fellowship, as it was called then. And
the new idea for me, which came at long last, was let's stop inviting people to come to church. Let's stop assuming that we've got this cozy little club here that everybody would be dying to get into if they could just discover us. Let's abandon that altogether, and let's take all of our energies, all of our 30 people, as healthy or unhealthy as they may be, and let's aim them out into the community doing serving projects. And let's see what we can do to change the city instead of simply invite the city to be changed on our terms.
we began to explore ways of connecting the heart of God with people, both in terms of reaching out to the community and what we began to call servant evangelism, which has now evolved into what we call kindness outreaches. It was a simple, doable way of doing evangelism, of maybe in some ways subtly shifting the paradigm of how people saw the church.
We haven't done this so that you come to our church, okay? It's no strings attached. We really mean that. We just wanted to show you God's love. But if you ever want to come along, we'd love to have you there. Just if you want to just visit, okay?
And we decided that we would just serve the city of Cincinnati with no strings attached.
So why don't we go out and do a free car wash? And we've heard of so-called free car washes before with community groups and youth groups and so on, and they usually take a donation at the end. But in our case, it was a totally free car wash. It had a big banner up that said totally free car wash. But people didn't believe us. They thought that we were kidding. They thought this was an episode of Candid Camera, and wondered if there was something hidden in the whole thing.
Our original outreaches were in places geographically and culturally in neighborhoods where people not only probably could not get to the vineyard, but would not come from a cultural perspective.
But everywhere you go in the world, people need to be served. People are hungry for kindness, they're hungry for generosity, they're hungry to see the love of God defined to them versus having it explained only to them. And our intention is to be a voice of encouragement to a lot of people.
Steve's heart is to really reach out to the unchurched, the uninitiated, people that are far from God, and see them touched with the love of Jesus and start their pilgrimage toward a commitment to Christ. And it's a process, you know, the idea of going out and just talking to someone for a half an hour and having them accept Christ afterward is a little difficult in our society because people don't understand much about Christ and his claims, and they've been turned off sort of traditional church. So this way we get to go out, we get the people from the church out into the streets, touching people in simple, effective ways that are easy to do, and we find that it's effective and fruitful.
It was amazing to me, several things. One is how many people we touched in a significant way that there's some kind of an emotive response on their part, that they began to tear up when we said it was for free, and they really believed that we weren't taking their money. They began to think differently about God, about church, about Christianity, that it's not a finger-wagging, brow-beating religion of trying to get people to behave and contribute, but it's a religion of love and generosity and kindness that changes people when they come into the presence of that generosity.
But it's just a different way of involving people in a way that says, come on, hang out with me. We'll go feed the poor together. We'll go pray for folks. We'll play music together. We'll worship. We'll hang out. And in the process, our lives are changed. Your life will be changed as well as you do it.
So we're meeting a need that they know, a need that God has already placed in their hearts. And as we meet that need, we find that people just come to us and say, hey, I want to know more about Jesus. I want to know more about God. Teach me, help me. And then they get turned on, and they turn around, and they're excited about it because that's what won them. The kindness of the Lord is what won them. So they want to turn around and
you have to continually teach and train people to become outwardly focused. The people who come in each weekend get a regular dose of stories and anecdotes of pastors going out and cleaning toilets or washing cars for free or giving away Cokes or whatever. The leadership models it. It becomes part of the DNA of the church, that it's normal to go out and to serve people.
Interestingly, the group began to grow almost immediately from that Saturday. And as a student of church growth and student of leadership, I'd like to say that A led to B led to C, and it was a very linear equation that could be explained, but it wasn't that way. The people that we served didn't come for years, actually, and which I think, parenthetically, is a comment on how skeptical people are today. They have, in their minds, seen Christianity, they've weighed it, and they have decided it's irrelevant, and it is, like I said earlier, parental, and it is money-driven. And so it takes a long time to re-tutor an entire city into thinking differently about God. And it takes a lot of acts of kindness. It takes a lot of massaging of the heart and the soul to go on for years, I think, sometimes decades, before individuals begin to connect the dots and say, hey, it's not all like that. All of a sudden, we went from 30 people to 100 people. A year later, had 200 people. A year later, had 400 people. A year later, had 600 people. Moved from location to location to location. Didn't have any money, but we had a lot of people, and didn't have the money to buy real estate. After going on probably 6-7 years, had about maybe 700-800 people. Had the nickels and dimes scraped together, to barely afford an old kind of a very out-of-date church that didn't fit us, didn't look like us at all in terms of style and ministry values and so on. Ended up purchasing that church, redid it. Everybody who sees this church says, I can't believe you guys meet in a church that looks that traditional. But it's worked very well for us over the years.
Began to see our celebrations more as a marketplace of people. All sorts of folks came in, varieties of backgrounds, and as a result, we became, to the best that we could, as hospitable, as user-friendly as possible.
Essentially, all organizations are just as static as this table is, unless there's an openness to new people coming in. The difficulty with that is that people tend to get comfortable with what they know and who they know, and they become exclusive. They become oil and water with new ones trying to work their way into the community. And so all of a sudden our hearts begin to change. We begin to realize this is not about us. It's about bringing and including the whole city into a church. And we became less boring. People began to show up.
So what we try to do is break down those hurdles in order that people can hear the very simple message of forgiveness, of mercy, of grace, of lives being changed by the power of the Holy Spirit. Some of those hurdles, you don't see it when you live in the church for a long time. You don't realize how much of a subculture you've become. So we use a lot of humor devices. We show lots of videos. We poke fun at the pastors. We try to break down that gap between what we might call laity and clergy that exists so huge in the church. The empowering of people to do the ministry is critical to us. So one way of doing that is by kind of lowering the pedestal that people tend to put pastors, which is really pretty sad.
So it's something that pastors are afraid of very often, or that church goers are afraid of, because again, we're asking them to look outwardly, and outward is unpredictable. Outward is them versus us. And, we all were them at one time. And so we just need to get back to exploring the them and making it easy to build bridges between the two.
What we discovered was that the look and the feel and the atmosphere of the vineyard needed to change to accommodate these unchurched people that God was sending us. It's funny, to create an environment, I'm sitting here in an auditorium that only seats 572, and about 4,300, 4,400 people cram into this little building each week. About 3,000 adults per weekend squeeze into 7 weekend celebrations, and then an extra number on a midweek celebration. And what you have here is a format that's very informal, it's very relaxed. The response that some people have to standard church is either it's irrelevant or boring, or I don't end a tough week to get yelled at by somebody. And so while our message is consistently evangelical, very straightforward in how we present the good news of Jesus Christ, the package is very informal. So, for instance, what all does that look like at a practical level? You walk in, you smell coffee right away in the lobby. The coffee is free. People bring their coffee into the auditorium here. It's very relaxed, very informal. In the summertime, people are dressed in very, very casual clothing. People come in shorts and so forth. There is less of an emphasis on what you look like, what social stratum you're at, way more emphasis on being vulnerable, being accepting, being open to whatever, and allowing God to do His work.
we'll do it, because everywhere you go in the world, there's pain. And as I believe as followers of Christ, we are called to relieve people's pain. And as we do that, we will show them the love of God.
What it boils down to, I believe, is that in our services, in our celebrations, really only one thing happens, and that's communication. And it happens at two levels. You communicate vertically, and you communicate horizontally. The vertical part is clearly worship, and the way our hearts are tuned and turned toward God in prayer and in song and so forth. The horizontal piece is speaking the truth of who God is and what His nature is and what our needs are to the people who come in.
If you're in New York City, in certain parts, doing windshields, washing windshields is a great idea. Other parts, they think that you're a street person, that you're trying to get money from them. Giving away soft drinks works really well in the Midwest in general, but it doesn't work very well in Orange County, California, because in Orange County people are more weight conscious, they're more sugar conscious, they'd rather have Evian water in a bottle. So it's really a matter of discovering what goes in each city and how could we best work to that end to get it, to really just be in sync with where the people are.
To pull off 7 celebrations each weekend, 8 total in a week, it takes a huge amount of volunteers. I couldn't give you a hard number. I believe there are probably about 350 people who just serve on the hospitality team. In worship alone, there are probably nearly 50 musicians and singers. To pull off what happens technically with audio and video, live sound, we probably have about 15 to 20 volunteers just there. That's all overseen by one staff person, one paid staff person, who never actually puts their hands on the equipment. You'll never find a perfect church. What you do is look for a place that has a mission, a sense of purpose. Ours happens to be to reach this city for Jesus Christ, both outside the walls and provide a format within the walls that's accommodating to the messed up heart condition that every single person has, rich or poor.
From the beginning, sought to take risks with people, do training, of course, show people how to do the work of the ministry, show them how to do it the way we do it here, and then giving them challenges and giving them the freedom to look at where the needs exist, and instead of having to prove their loyalty over just an incredibly extended period of time and saying, you need to go to our Bible school or listen to these 11-7 tapes and read all my books and so on, saying, I mean, really my motto is ready, fire, aim. It's my personal motto, ready, fire, aim. And that is kind of the opposite of a lot of the spirit of the modern church in the West. I think the church as we know it is pretty much ready, aim, ready, aim, ready, aim, ready, aim, never getting to fire. And so ours has been just ready, fire, aim. Why don't we just go ahead and take a risk? Because every once in a while we'll make a bold mistake, but there's nothing like a bold mistake to learn how to go forward.
And we noticed that she had club foot, which is where your foot is turned sideways. And she had been that way from birth, and their family couldn't afford to have an operation done or anything. And so we asked, well, can we pray for her? And they said, well, sure, if you want to. And they brought her out, and she came out. She had these, I remember she had this long dress on. She was really ashamed of her foot, actually. She sat down, and even before we started praying for her, she was kind of tearing up, just that we would come in her house and pay attention to her or want to pray for her. And there were 2 other people, and I was just like, I can't pray out loud. Somebody else is going to have to pray out loud. And so one of the guys said, well, why don't you just put your hands on her foot and, we'll pray. Everything will be fine. I said, okay, I can do that. So I knelt down at her feet and I put my hands around her ankle. And we started praying, and I noticed that I heard this kind of crackling and popping sound coming from her ankle. And what was happening was that God was healing her, and her ankle just started moving back to where it should have been in the first place. And we finished praying, and her ankle was perfectly straight. And she just, by that time, she was just in tears and crying. And her daughter had come over, and just, they were astonished. And I remember when we got done, she said, I realized that God must really love me. And I know it still affects me now.
Probably about 4 years ago, it was Monday. I'd done numbers of services over the weekend, was tired, was worn out, didn't want to talk to anybody. All I wanted to do was read and watch movies, I think. And I was really disgusted at for a number of reasons that day, and I said, today I'm really quitting. And she said, well, why don't you go out and take a little drive? And while you're out there, why don't you pick me up a burrito on the way back? And I thought to myself, this is great. My wife is just right in sync with me and feeling my pain, and so on. Asked me for a burrito of all things. Went out and did kind of a ventilation therapy, driving around the community a little bit. Ended up pulling through I think it was Taco Bell on the way back. And as I sat in line there, had to wait quite a while on top of everything else. It was not a lot of fun. I remember waiting in line 7 or 8 cars back in the drive-thru, and had a sense, kind of just a vague thought going through my head. If I'll open my car door and look down, there's a gift for me. And I thought that was strange, because what kind of a gift could there be for me in the drive-thru lane of Taco Bell? Thought to myself, what do I have to lose? Opened the door, looked down, and there on the ground was a penny that had been run over. I don't know how many times. It was completely blackened. I would say it had been there for some months, because it had actually sunk into the asphalt. So I had to pry it up and pull it up with little pieces of asphalt, clinging to it. And as I sat there and held it, looked at it, and I had a couple of thoughts go through my head, like, great, what a gift, a penny. Second thought that hit me was that in a kind of a metaphorical sense, I've been called to collect pennies. That my job is to be a person, to be a leader that attracts discarded pennies. In fact, you can't buy anything with a penny these days. They give them away for free at the checkout stands. If you need a penny, take a couple and so on. It's really a kind of a worthless, valueless commodity in our culture these days. And I realize all of a sudden these very situations that are driving me batty in the day-to-day, week-to-week grind of life are the very gifts that God is sending me, discarded pennies. And that I had missed the boat. I was getting angry and frustrated at the very gift that God was sending me, which is favor with people that are traditionally discarded. So I ended up holding on to that penny, and then I think it was another couple of days later, I was in a frustrating situation with a penny person. Looked down, and there at my feet was a penny. Another couple of days, another frustrating person sitting there going, my word, this is taxing to me. Listen to this person's problems, talking to them, and so on. Look down, there's another penny. Well, since then, without really me looking, being in my own just, living my life without looking for pennies, have felt a sense to look down, and now have found something in the range of about 1,500 pennies over the last few years. Some days 3 and 4 in one day. It's been amazing. Just yesterday found 2. And one friend of mine accuses me now of looking for pennies. I'm not looking for pennies. I just happened to be frustrated fairly often. And the pennies end up showing up at the right moment because God knows that I need the encouragement. And, interesting thing about pennies is even though they are, in a sense, worthless, you get enough pennies accumulated and stacked up and piled together, and it can amount to something. And I think that's a metaphor of what's going on in my life. I think it's a metaphor of what's going on here at this church. Is there something that's amounting to something here? That's going to. I think we're all worthless pennies, in a sense. I think we'd like to think of ourselves as $50 bills, but when you get down to it, that there is a lot of brokenness, there's a lot of discardedness in all of our lives. It doesn't matter how perfect our family was, we came from. In our low moments, we're aware that this is a world that tends to penalize us all on a day-to-day. This kind of buffets us from day to day. And I believe that God is calling every single person on the earth. I think He is inviting every single human being to be a part of His family. The only qualification is to realize that A, I am valued by God. B, He really does want me. He's not just accepting me, but He's wanting me. He's inviting me. He's enthusiastically embracing me. And I think it's a pretty exciting proposition.